Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Today, I'm joined by Kat Lash-Williams. Raised in Miami, she studied at USC before earning her graduate degree from King's College London. Her career began in the family business, focusing on hotel development and consulting, before shifting into single-family residential asset management for a private equity group. But hospitality called her back, returned to the sector through select service, acquisitions, and asset management. Following a COVID-era pivot, she transitioned to the brand side, working in development for Virgin Hotels. After a brief family relocation to the UK, she joined Casa Collective before ultimately returning to the US and the family business, where she now focuses on ultra-luxury hotel development. She's based in Orlando with her husband and 2 kids. Let's welcome Kat to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I am stoked about this conversation because everything we've spoken about was like, yes, yes, yes. We were just laughing about how I asked you how important design is in the realm of ROI, and both of us just started cracking up because it's literally the key.
Yes, it's so important, and it's so good that that is the exact same feeling and same vibe when it comes to that.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us in your own words about your background, how you got to where you are today.
So I grew up in a hospitality family. My dad and my uncle started a business together where my dad was with PKF originally and then went out on his own to go into consulting. And ultimately, when he realized, hey, I've been consulting on this for a while, I'm going to develop. I didn't think that's what I wanted to do. I figured, this is easy summer money when I was a kid working in the office, calling airports, because back then you couldn't Google on how many arrivals to the Bahamas. You had to call the airports. But I also graduated from university in 2008, grad school in 2010. There was not a huge demand for theater masters. So I joined the family business and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with hotel development and consulting and helping people solve the problems and being able to use my creative background with something slightly more analytical. I wanted to spread my wings into another asset class. So I very briefly, for a couple of years, did single family residential, and hotels called me back. And this time in asset management and acquisitions, select service. I wanted to try a new sector, it's so different when you're looking at ultra luxury and select service. COVID, I have great timing in the hospitality industry, graduating in '08 and then COVID. But I got to join the brand side, which I was so lucky to work with 2 groups that have so much creativity. Virgin Hotels, design is such a huge aspect to the hotels and making them so creative and finding how they can each fit that market, which is something I hugely believe in. And then Casa Collective, they just have these stunning, gorgeous properties throughout Europe and in Northern Africa. And now I'm back working for the family business, and I'm focusing on ultra luxury, amazing destinations that are just really exciting to be a part of.
That sounds fabulous. I feel like I'm there already and I have no idea what it looks like. Tell us what aspect of hotels called you back from all the different things that you could have done. What really spoke to you?
What I like about hotels is you get to combine, God, this is such a boring answer, in that you get to combine an operating business with real estate. And it's just so much more difficult than this will rent for X amount of dollars, ergo your return will be this. You have to fit together so many more puzzle pieces, which, while I love the analytical side of it, I was saying, I'm a spreadsheet person. You can't get me out of Excel, but you also have to be creative about it. You have to understand so many moving parts to make sure a deal is going to make sense. And you get to work with incredibly creative people, and seeing how all of this can come together. It just kind of feels like, I don't know, like surgery, but in real estate. what I imagine a surgeon feels like when they're putting someone back together.
That's hysterical. Do you feel like the market strategy, I mean, you made mention of it before, but the market strategy of like who you're designing it for and how does that affect the numbers side of things?
Absolutely. I think you're going to take a look, and with both, because I've worked on both ends of the segments where you select service all the way up to ultra luxury, you have to look at who's going to be staying there. Are these going to be business travelers who I'm not going to name drop the brand, but who they cater to them in terms of location, but the design doesn't necessarily work for them. So they're not going to go back because there's not a convenient place to put a laptop. There's nowhere to have an ironing board. So when you're getting ready to go to a meeting, you can't look fresh. So you're going to have to think about these things versus someone who's coming and listen, in their day-to-day life, they're so hooked in, they're so connected that when they get there, they want to stop, they want to recharge, but they also probably can't fully disconnect. So you need to make sure that it's set up for them in that regard too.
So what's the cost of not having that in place? Like the cost of not taking into consideration who your target demographic is and what their specific unique needs are?
You're not going to get return business. And not only that, you are going to there's actually again, that same brand. It's funny. My husband worked for one of the big four and his boss stayed at this brand, and she actually had them drop this hotel from their preferred vendor list because she was saying the team showed up and it was so inconvenient. We couldn't get the work done. It actually does impact. That's a pretty big client. It was a team with one of the big four accounting groups, and you see that. And when it comes to ultra luxury, you need to have people who are going to come back. You need to spread. You need word of mouth. So if someone goes and they say, "Yeah, we paid XYZ per night, and this is what it delivered." Come on. You're not going to have them come back, and you need to make them want to leave and want to come back. We just did a little staycation with our son, and the experience was so wonderful. He actually asked us, "Can we go back tomorrow night? Okay, can we go back next weekend?" And it was because the experience was so well designed that even a small child was like, "Okay, we need to go back there." And you want someone to leave that experience with that feeling, because that's where your money comes in.
Right. And you know that something is really good when you can say like, explain it to me like I'm 5, right? You know that if it's a marketing message, it's good. So like if, somebody who's 4 or 5, whatever, 6, they understand the experiential side of things and they feel it. I think it's the same idea.
Exactly. And that's the thing. We are in an experiential world now. You cannot get away from that. And if someone doesn't feel that, that experience doesn't, sounds cheesy, but live inside them afterwards, you're not going to get that repeat business. And repeat business is so huge, especially if you're catering towards more a business traveler, because they're going to want to leave that knowing there's going to be something in the back of their head that's like, hey, that triggered a better experience on that work trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know like the cost of customer acquisition that first time is, X dollars, but having them repeat, right? Unless you're retargeting them with ads and whatever, and that costs money, but to have them repurchase with you, that cost of acquisition goes down tremendously. Again, leading back to higher ROI.
Absolutely. And nowadays, we all still have our brand loyalties, we have our frequent flyer programs, we have our memberships. But at the end of the day, the internet, and God, I've seen it everywhere, like these things on how to use Chat GPT to get the best deal. But people are doing that, and people are saying, hey, I want the best deal. So even though I have this membership program, I'm going to go there. But unless you can keep them with that experience, that it's worth it if your ADR is a little bit higher, they'll come back for that, even though they can find a cheaper deal or a more reasonable price somewhere else.
Right. Especially if they know what to expect. And like to your point, you said about a business traveler, if I went somewhere and I had all the amenities and everything that I needed, and the entire experience went smooth, so that, let's say I'm traveling and I'm going to do a job site visit, and I need to make sure that everything else is taken care of. I don't have to worry. I can only focus on, the work that I need to do, and everything else I know, I can sleep well and
Exactly.
well rested, literally, because the whole experience is catered towards the traveler, the one that's actually using the space.
Exactly. Like it's even down to the small details of, is there an outlet by the desk that can fit like an Apple charger? Is it large enough that you're not going to try to have it fumbling to plug it in? Is the mattress comfortable? Like you said, well rested. Is someone going to wake up well rested? Or are they going to have loud noises outside their room all night? All these things that you have to think about to make someone want to come back.
You mentioned before the show about brands that are flailing, that things, kind of falling apart. Where are we at in terms of the trends and what you're seeing in the current modern guest wants?
So yeah, the modern guest, we have noticed, wants something that is rooted in the destination. When you look at the big box Marriott or Hilton, that is just a generic hotel with a generic design that fits into, just plopped down, and you could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. It's going to look exactly the same. No one wants that anymore. We want to know, even if we're there for a 1 or 2 night stay, and again, for work, I like to use that as an example, you still want to feel like you are part of the destination where you are. You want to have that experience. And we were looking at a hotel to help someone with a disposition in Latin America recently. And one of the things I noticed about this hotel is it is almost entirely business travelers. You're not getting anybody else, but it was so beautifully designed to fit in to the city center where it's located that you can see why someone would choose to go there versus the Novotel down the street, because you're going to get an experience that makes you feel like you are having an experience, that you're in a destination. You're not just waking up, going to sleep, and it doesn't matter where you are. You're going to get to have that rooted destination.
Yeah, because if you're spending the money already, and I've heard this from numerous people, that people in millennials and Gen Z, they're wanting to have more of like different experiences every single time. They're not wanting to just have the same experience over and over again. They're wanting to try new things. And I think that a hotel that understands that, maybe a brand that has multiple locations, will be able to provide that in a very specific, intentional way for that location and that demographic.
Absolutely. And I think there are brands some of the bigger brands who, with their smaller brands, they're figuring out how to do this. I think Hotel Indigo is a good example of using, they have their standard design that they then customize to each city, even if it comes down to just the artwork or smaller details where they try to make it feel that you are in that location. I think the Hotel Indigo in Tuscaloosa is a great example, how they've specifically done artwork to bring up historical elements of the city that just really showcase that you're there, you're in a brand, so you know what you're going to get. You're in Hotel Indigo, you're going to get a certain standard of service, a certain level of comfort, but it still feels unique to where you are. And I think more hotels and more brands need to take note of that today.
Yeah. I like the idea of templatizing a plan. Like that's something that we are actually rolling out for our clients as well. Like have a template. It can be customized according to location or your needs or the layout, but here's the scheme and here's what the brand looks like. And so there is that sense of continuity and brand expectation, but it can then be more customized per demographic and location. And I think that there is merit in having that, but then you also have to understand your brand and what you want to stand for. Like the ultra luxury probably will be custom per location.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where you're going down to. Nowadays, I don't think you can do ultra luxury for less than $1 million a key at this point. And I think where you have to work with design is to make sure that we don't go too far above that $1 million per key, because it is going to be customized to that location. Because if you're at Almanara, you don't want the same experience in the same exact. If Almanara was just picked up and plopped down at Almangiri, you are not going to be happy. You're going to think to yourself, well, that's ridiculous. They're completely different locations. You want a certain level of service, a certain level of design, a certain feel to it, but it cannot be the same. And that's where you have to the brands. Almon's a great example of that. They are so of their destination, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think that even at $1 million, you said $1 million a key.
I would say that's your base to get in. Yeah.
So even with that, there's still value engineering. There's always planning and working a budget. Like when we design a space, we're always running the budget next to the design. They always go hand in hand. So every line item that we pick out, it has to be next to the budget. And this way, you're constantly checking back in. How can we, and that goes back to ROI as well, because even a luxury property, you still want to have a higher return, right? It
Yes.
can look, it can look high end without costing high end.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that you're so right on that, is that obviously it sounds like $1 million a key, you have unlimited funds. You don't, though, because at a certain point, you start pricing yourself out when you go back to market. And you have to realize that it's so important to work with designers who understand that the budget may be high, but that there is a budget, and we gotta stick to it.
Absolutely. What specifically sets the ultra luxury properties that you're now working on apart from the properties that you were working on before?
So I would say I have now moved, there was more, it was luxury, but it was still more attainable. Now the destinations I have to be honest, most of the time the land was acquired a really long time ago because the barrier to entry is so high in these markets, where either you have land constraints, so there isn't available land, or the land around has all been developed and picked up, and this is the last spot. And these locations are just so special, and they focus on something that it all comes back to experiences right now, where someone can have a truly unique and special experience. Out in the Southwest, near a national park, for example, where you were on the doorstep of a national park that you cannot get closer without being in that national park,
Right.
which it feels as if you are living in this bit of nature, this big sky that is so special. And I think that's what I've really been focusing on, are these destinations that they're once in a lifetime, but hopefully not once in a lifetime. The customers come back, but we want them to feel every single time like it's once in a lifetime to be in this place.
I mean, it sounds so magical the way you describe it. And I think that it's that being able to say it in that way and to communicate it so that people can literally envision themselves as if they're there, that really it allows them to kind of like transport themselves from seeing it online to actually like imagining themselves there.
Absolutely, Liz, absolutely. My husband is in marketing, so I always have to feed these things to him and say, like, okay, am I getting my point across?
Exactly.
He's like, yes, I can see myself there. And that's something I really strive for, is I want people to want to be able to see what we're putting out there.
Yeah. And that's really important, that online to offline experience where they're seeing it online, they're seeing it's the story and the brand are communicated online, but then they're actually experiencing, there's that continuity where they're experiencing it in person. That's what gets them to like, trust and want to come back too.
Yes, there's something to be said for, obviously we all know the photos are taken at the best angles, as they should be, but the photo shouldn't try to hide anything. Your marketing campaign shouldn't try to create a false image. And that's what we really want to go for, is those beautiful pictures. You feel like you stepped into them when you get there.
Absolutely. So what's next, do you think, in terms of the market and the industry? What's the biggest opportunity that's coming up?
The biggest opportunity coming up, I think at this point, it is going to be someone who can, right now, obviously with where the economy is going, it's a tough market. So as Gen Z, Gen Alpha, which sounds crazy, are starting to age into our next major spending demographic, who can capture them and capture their return, because they're very discerning in being able to say, I didn't like that, on to the next. So the next brand will be the one who can capture that loyalty. And I think that is going to be something that's going to be huge for any company that can do that. Which is something that when I was speaking to a GM at one of the Grand Dames in Paris about 5 or 6 years ago, he said that's going to be the next challenge, is capturing the loyalty.
And what do you envision that looking like? How does somebody do that?
I think it always circles back to for me, the destination, feeling rooted, like when they go to that place, because that's what they want. They don't want to feel like a tourist. They don't want to feel as if they're a visitor. They want to feel as if they're a part of a place, which is of course hard to do when you're staying at a hotel, but that's why Airbnb had so much success for so long, and still obviously has success. But when people feel like they're living somewhere, that they can truly experience what it feels like to be a part of their destination, that's when they're going to come back. And I think That's where development is going to have to go, where you cannot be generic anymore. You cannot just rest on your laurels and say, hey, we have this, we've done this. I said this about the Grand Dames at one point. You can't just say we're the Ritz. Obviously, the Ritz is still, but there has to be something that makes them feel special in that destination.
I think that goes back to like, so many people are saying, oh, is AI going to take my job? And I'm like, no, because it's that very thing that you need to stand out. And that can only happen creatively with that special touch, the human touch, in order to really communicate that, like, this is all goes back. And something we learned from COVID, right, is it's connection, that we just craved so much to meet people where they're at, to learn about them culturally, personally. And I think that we all recognize now, just how important the human connection is, even though we're all like spread out through social media and, and have a little bit of that disconnect, but that's what we crave. And so if we're able to, through the spaces and through these experiences, reconnect, I think that's probably the biggest driver of ROI for the next generation, for current generations, but also for the future generations as well.
That is what it is. It's about connection. And the brands that can capture that, those are the ones that are going to have staying power.
They're going to kill it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So last question for you. What are the top 3 tips that you would give to somebody looking to develop a hotel or brand so that they can seek the highest return on investment for their business?
That's really, I was on a call today actually talking about this with someone who has been interested in hospitality for a long time, but they're very new to the space. And the number one thing is the first tip is don't go in because you stayed at XYZ brand and think to yourself, I want to develop this brand. Think to yourself, I have this parcel, what can work here? And be open to different brands and be open to different opportunities. Don't just, get that narrow tunnel vision on a particular brand. Focus in on what your parcel has to offer, wherever that may be. The next is what we've talked about is budget, because I will say this, I love brands. I've worked for 2 of them and I've worked on the other side. You have to, obviously they're going to want to go as far as they can. And that's amazing because you get people who have these great ideas. You have to make sure that you trust your developer or your project manager to really handle sticking to the budget and making sure you focus in on that. And then the third is, you have to understand your market. You cannot develop a hotel until you know exactly who is going to be staying there and what the drivers are for that market. So detailed market study, the most detailed you can get. Get so granular and really understand that market, because as COVID proved to us, they used to sell hotels as recession proof. And the group I worked for bought a hotel that we all laughed in a sad way when we looked back at the marketing material, because it said recession proof in the marketing material.
No way.
Yeah, because who would have thought a pandemic would come along that would say, you're right, recession proof is great when there's a university, when there are hospitals, et cetera. But when all these other things are canceled and no one's traveling because of a pandemic, there isn't such a thing as recession proof anymore.
And you need to stay ahead no matter what. And be
exactly.
I heard somebody say recently that all hotels operate at a negative profit. Is that true?
I'm not sure. I don't know anyone would invest in a hotel if that was true.
She's like this big YouTube personality, and I heard that and I was like, that's interesting. She was like, the hotels are not a good way, not a good place to invest in. But everything that you shared with us here today, I would venture to say perhaps the hotels that are not positioning themselves properly are the ones that are not able to succeed and be able to flourish and be profitable.
I think that's exactly it. And I think one of the things that I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with people is a hotel is not an easy, she's absolutely right. It's not an easy thing. It is not, if you just want to invest in real estate, way easier ways to do it. Absolutely. 100%. But when you position yourself, you really make sure that you understand the brand you're working with, the market you're working with, they're absolutely profitable.
Amazing. This has been so fabulous and insightful. I need to have you back on soon so that we can see what else you're up to. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and super fun with our conversations. Thank you so much for joining.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. And if our audience wants to learn more about you or connect, how can they do that?
I like to share my thoughts on LinkedIn at Kat, K-A-T, Lash-Williams. I like to post and share just different insights about hotels there.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Kat. Been a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much. Thank you.